Hi students, Mrs. Nice again. So this video is going to be reading section 27.3, the growth of trade and commerce. Again, always preview the questions for that section first. So this one, the questions are, describe how Marco Polo's travels along the Silk Road helped reawaken interest in classical culture. Question 2, list and explain 2 results of the increase in trade in Europe. And question 3, identify the primary factor from this section that led to the start of the Renaissance and provide at least 2 supporting details that further explain how this led to the rebirth of classical culture and learning in Europe. And there's a spot where you write the primary factor and then you do the supporting evidence or supporting details right here. All right, let's start reading. The growth of trade and commerce. One reason for the flowering of culture during the Renaissance was the growth of trade and commerce. Trade brought new ideas as well as goods into Europe. A bustling economy created prosperous cities and new classes of people who had the wealth to support art and learning. Okay, so this is saying one reason, you guys, for the birth of the Renaissance was because trade and commerce and the exchange of money. And with trade, new ideas and trade products, goods come into Europe. And as the economy starts doing better, you have people becoming more wealthy who can spend their extra money on things like art and knowledge and learning. Increased contacts between East and West. Starting in the 11th century, the Crusades strengthened contacts between Western Europe and Byzantine and Muslim cultures. Merchants brought goods and ideas from the East that helped to reawaken interest in classical culture. In the 13th century, the Mongol conquests in Asia made it safer for travelers to travel along the Silk Road to China, or for traders to travel along the Silk Road to China. The tales of the Italian traveler Marco Polo sparked even greater interest in the East. Food, art, and luxury goods such as silk and spices moved along the trade routes linking Europe to Africa and Asia. Okay, so this paragraph, it's just talking about the Crusades strengthened trade because now we have these new trade goods that are being brought back from the Middle East in the Byzantine Empire. But also, so did the Mongol conquest in Asia and the establishment of the Yuan dynasty. Remember, the Yuan dynasty, they make the Silk Road safe again, and that allows traders to be able to trade along the Silk Road and get goods from east to west. And then people like Marco Polo, who went to China for many years and then came back and wrote a book about it. It made people really interested and made them really want trade goods from the East. So you could definitely answer some of the questions based off of this paragraph. Next. Cities such as Venice and Genoa in Italy were centrally located on the trade routes that linked the rest of Western Europe with the East. They became bustling, prosperous, or wealthy trading centers that attracted merchants and customers, as did cities in Northern Europe such as Bruges and Brussels. Trade ships carried goods to England, Scandinavia, and present-day Russia by way of the English Channel and the Baltic and North Seas. Towns along the routes connecting southern and northern Europe, such as Cologne and Mainz in Germany, provided inns and other services for traveling merchants. So here it talks about one of the reasons Italy was a place where the Renaissance happened is because it was a main trade area. It is where goods got into Europe from. So when they came from the East, they oftentimes went through Italy first. All right, and then we see our picture here. It says, this 15th century French illustration shows people exchanging goods for money in a shop in a Renaissance town. So you can see the goods and they have money. Continuing. A new economy. The increase in trade led to a new kind of economy. During the Middle Ages, people bartered or traded goods. By the Renaissance, people were using coins to buy merchandise, creating a money economy. Coins came from many places, so money changers were needed to convert one type of currency or one country's money into another. As a result of all this activity, craftspeople, merchants, and bankers became more important in society. Craftspeople produced goods that merchants traded across Europe. Bankers exchanged currency, loaned money to merchants and rulers, and financed their own businesses. Some merchants and bankers grew very rich. With their abundant wealth, they could afford to make their cities more beautiful. Wealthy patrons commissioned or ordered and paid for new buildings and art. They also helped to found universities. Prosperous Renaissance cities grew into flourishing educational and cultural centers. So this section is really talking about that as people started trading more, they started using money. And once they started using money instead of just bartering goods, then there's a need for bankers. And then that expands, even more people start making stuff and can sell it for money or exchange it for money. And so as bankers become more important, merchants become more important, and these two groups become very rich. And with that money they have, they help start the Renaissance, really. They start paying for artwork. They become patrons, which means they order artwork and then it gets made for them, and they paid for it. And so they commission these pieces of art. And so they not only do this with art, but they also give money to help start universities and places of learning. And so we see these cities become really prosperous because of these wealthy merchants and bankers. Make sure you go and you answer the questions on the slide. I will give you a hint over here. So when it says identify the primary factor from this section that led to the start of the Renaissance, that is really just, whoops, wrong document, sorry guys. That is really just what this section is about. It's the growth of trade and commerce. So on that part, you are going to write the growth of trade and commerce. Where'd it go? Yeah, so primary factor, growth of trade and commerce, and then you could put in 2 supporting details right there. All right, the next video will be for the next section. So go ahead and pause this, make sure you answer the questions, and then the next section will be the influence of Italian city-states, section 27.4. Thanks.